Hey everyone, welcome back to the garage. Today's episode is going to give an update on the garage itself. And if you watched any of the other videos, you know we're in the middle of a project to remodel or finish, I guess, this garage, this barn. And so this exciting update, you can see we've got a lot done here. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but we've got drywall and then paint and electrical done. And windows in. See, the last time I think we talked, we didn't have these windows in yet. And so yeah, exciting update today. Okay, so first up, we'll talk about the windows a little bit. The last video we had installed these two windows here. They needed some reframing to be installed, but we didn't do the other three because they didn't really need a whole lot of reframing before we could insulate. They did need a little bit of framing though. These are slightly taller. So the other windows were 36 by 36, pretty much dead. These are 37 and a quarter by like 35 and 7/8. They're not exactly 36 by 36. So we had to pull the board across the top out and trim it down. The board across the top doesn't have a lot of structural integrity. It's just a framing for the window. So there's a header up here to provide that rigidity at the ceiling. So we had to cut that top board out and with a table saw rip it down skinnier, thus making the opening taller. But then of course the jacks on the side were too short, so those had to come out and be replaced with longer ones to shore up the support for the window again. It worked out pretty well. The other windows, interestingly, well, annoyingly, these windows were just screwed in or nailed in or whatever from the inside. And they had very little flange on the outside. The windows that were here had quite a flange and it went underneath the siding. So that's a bigger project, like remove the siding and get the soffit out and all that stuff. So we decided not to do that and we just cut them off. And once we cut them off, then the flange just pulled out. These have a much smaller flange than the old ones did. So they just sit over top to caulk the outside. I've done a bunch of windows. I'm not a window expert by any means, but I've done quite a few. And I have never gotten this foam right. I've watched a bunch of videos on it. I've Googled it. I've had friends help me do it. Every time I do it, this actually isn't too bad, but every time I do it, I make a blasted mess. So if you guys have any tips on foaming these windows, I'd be interested because I'm sure these aren't the last windows I'm going to do. It won't help me today, but they're in and they're sealed, so it just makes a mess to clean up later. You got to trim all this down so I can get trim in here. Some of this will just compress, which is what I'd rather do than cut it. But some of it, it's just too big. Like that's not going to push in enough to put trim in, so I'm going to have to cut that off. And that kind of loses some of its integrity when you cut the edge of it. So we got one window here, we have one over here, and then one back here, which is kind of a pain because there's a shed, there's like an overhang back there, like a carport, but not big enough for a car. And all the stuff that was in here is out there, so it was in the way. But we were able to work around it, and you can see I'm gonna have to do some fixing here now that I'm looking at them. That foam didn't get in there very good, so I'll probably just caulk that before I trim it. See spots up there. So when I cut it here, it didn't cut all the way through, and when I peeled it off, it pulled out. So like I said, I kind of suck at this. They're caulked from the outside and they're pretty sealed pretty tight, so I'm not really that worried about it. Again, when we lived in Michigan, we had like that caulk just wasn't going to provide enough insulation, and that cold would just, the wind and stuff would just come right through the windows. You can feel it. Here, you're just trying to keep the air in for the most part and keep the bugs out. The caulk will do that. These are impact windows. I figured at this point, might as well get impact windows. I did them myself, and for any of you who are in hurricane country and you've installed impact windows, hurricane windows, you'll look at this and you'll say, yeah, that's not code. And you're right, it's not. I did them myself. I just get them in. I did the impact glass more for peace of mind. I'm not trying to get this. This isn't, you know, really a insurance thing. We have shutters we can put up if we have to for insurance to get them to make them happy. But this is just for peace of mind. I can leave and be on vacation and not worry about having to run home and protect the cars and my office and all that stuff. So they were only $100 more per window for impact glass versus regular glass, so I figured it was worth it. But if you're gonna do impact glass and you want the wind mitigation discount on your insurance, one, you can't use wood shims. You gotta use plastic shims, and they have this membrane you put around the studs. That way there's no exposed wood, and it runs the water off. So if that water does get through, it won't rot the wood. And then you trim over top. So at least that's the way I understand it. I didn't do that. You know, like I have my office out here and I want to make it nice, but it is just a barn. So anyway, that's it for the windows, and talk a little bit about the drywall and paint. So the drywall, I bought 12-foot sheets of drywall because my thinking was I'm really not that good at mudding, the taping and mudding and sanding. It takes me forever. I have to do it over like 3 times. Every time I've had to do drywall, that part takes me like a week. And so I figured I would buy longer sheets and have fewer seams. And having fewer seams is fewer places for me to have to try to tape and mud and get it, you know, well, honestly, and screw it up. I bought 12-foot sheets also because that back wall is 24 feet. 2 sheets across, 1 seam in the middle. It's gonna be covered up by a shelf there, and then the television. So I figured that's one nice seam I can hide if it looks terrible. And I'd never used 12-foot sheets of drywall. I've always done 8, and I did not appreciate how heavy and difficult 12-foot sheets of drywall are to work with. We had 2 of them break, just trying to get them off the trailer. We had a hoist, and it still was a mess. It just was a real pain in the butt. If you are not doing huge spaces and you're not a pro, stick with 8-foot pieces. Don't make that mistake that I did. It seemed like a good idea, and none of all of these studs, they're like, most of them are in 16-inch centers, but they're not all from wall to wall. We always had to cut one, and so then we had to cut, and then we have these. I covered them up now, you can't see them, but up here, actually both top and the bottom, the different places where there's these hurricane straps, these wind straps. So they're these long brackets that come down and they connect the header board, like sill plate, whatever, to the stud, and then also to the base plate. Those are like, with the nails, they're like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. So trying not to have that be right at the edge of a drywall where it's gonna bend and break or be angled out funny. So we ended up cutting them anyway. And I ended up with the same number of seams if I just had 8-foot pieces. So it was just dumb. And it was more expensive and harder to work with. It took twice as long. That was a bad idea. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I'm full of those. But anyway, we got it up. And then in the process of doing the drywall, I decided to, it's pretty much healed now, but I tried to lop the end of my finger off with a knife and did a pretty successful job. That put me down to 1 hand. And at that point, as bad as I am with 2 hands with mud and tape, I'm worse with 1. So I ended up hiring that out, which was not ideal because that's expensive work. Drywall is expensive work, guys. You think you're gonna get drywall work done cheap, let me tell you, you're not. It's really, really hard work. It takes a really, really long time. I mean, it was for him, as a pro, it was 3 days. It's tough, and if you're gonna pay to get it done, be prepared to pay for it. And you don't want a cheap drywaller. Trust me, I'm a cheap drywaller, and I suck. Anyway, so that got done just before Christmas. Actually, it was on Christmas Eve, which was pretty cool. So I had the weekend. So primed it, painted it. I got the painting done last night. Went with kind of it's hard to tell on camera and the lighting in here. It looks way more gray. It looks almost concrete colored on camera, but in person, it's got a little bit of neutral tone to it. So it's much warmer than it looks, which is nice. Be nice for the office space. I have new flooring to go in. So this is the race deck. So I only have enough for the office right now. I was trying to save since I had to pay for drywall work. I didn't really have the money to spend on the rest of the flooring. So I'm gonna kind of hold off probably till spring and get the rest of the floor, but this is just the office space. The garage space will be that kind of mesh stuff that stuff falls through. So that's gonna be here out to about here. So it's about 12 feet. And then the rest will be the regular race deck flooring. Do a video when I install that and just on that. That'll be pretty cool install. I've watched it done, but I've never done it. I've helped with Swiss Tracks, which is the other competing brand to race deck, and they're pretty much the same from what I can tell. So slight differences, nuanced differences, like different colors, different thicknesses, but as far as how they work, it's pretty close. Got the TV hung. That was kind of a milestone step for the man cave here. I put an outlet up here so I don't have a bunch of cords hanging down since I had everything open. And then I also have an outlet out here at the front of the garage, and that will be for a side-mounted garage door opener. Since it's a short ceiling here, I don't have a lot of height. I didn't want to lose height with a garage door opener hanging below, which is a bummer because I picked one up used, but now I'm not going to use it. So, hey, if anybody needs a used garage door opener, as far as I know, it worked when it was removed, let me know. But I'll mount that up there. I'll also do a separate video on that, just the installation and process of that. I've never done that either, so you guys can learn along with me. But anyway, that's the update for now. This is, let's see, where are we at? We are just before New Year's. This is the 28th. So I'm hoping by the 3rd, that's 5 days, to be in this as an office before, so when I go back to work I'm off this week from work. I'd like to start work with my new office next week. So baseboard trim, so flooring, baseboard trim, window trim, and then start moving in. And we'll start organizing. This is a mess. It'll clear up once we get flooring off these carts and toolboxes where they're supposed to go and all that jazz. So it's getting exciting. Unfortunately, I mentioned before, we still have the car is not running again. Once we get this all organized and cleared out and flooring in and all that jazz, then we'll get that car in and start again. All right, well, that's all for now. So relatively short, just an update on the garage, where we're at. Thanks for coming by. Stay tuned next time. We should have quite a finished look in here, which is pretty cool. Hit the like, subscribe, and comment below if you have anything you want to see or know more about. I know this was not a super like how-to video, but more of just a kind of an update on what I've done so far. Anyway, thanks. We'll see you next time.